Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nitin Choda, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. I'm in a slightly different setup today. I hope you like it. I hope you folks enjoyed Super Bowl Sunday. Tom Brady is a man. What can I tell you? Let's just jump right in, everybody. Here's a brand new headline on your screen from Fox that suggests progressives push back after Biden predicts that stimulus relief will not include an increase for the minimum wage. Now, if you folks have been following our channel, I've talked to you about the conservative senator, the conservative Democrat from West Virginia, Joe Manchin. There he is. What's up, Joe? Who basically said that he's not in support of the $15 an hour minimum wage. He said that he thought $11 an hour was more appropriate, specifically for his state of West Virginia. Without his support, the $15 an hour minimum wage is not going to be able to go through. In fact, President Biden pretty much said that the $15 an hour minimum wage was not going to happen. But in a very interesting political dynamic, he didn't blame Joe Manchin. He simply said something about a bird rule, and he said that it was unlikely to happen. In fact, folks, here's what President Biden said in a CBS interview with Norah O'Donnell. He said, and I quote the President of the United States, "I put it in, but I don't think it's going to survive. My guess is it will not be in the final relief bill." Now, the president did say, as he has said in the past, "I do think that we should have a minimum wage stand by itself, $15 an hour." Now, I want our viewers and subscribers to understand there's a difference between minimum wage and living wage. Now, a living wage allows you to have enough money to live. The predicament is in our country, the living wage differs depending on where you live. $15 an hour goes much further in a place like Arkansas, in a place like Alabama, compared to, let's say, California or New York. So this creates a complex problem because the standard of living and the living wage is so different across our country, because the United States of America is such a large country, such a diverse country, and there's so many different things that go on in different parts of the country. So the dollar essentially goes a much further way in some parts of the country relative to others. Now, folks, one person who's not at all happy with doing away with the $15 an hour minimum wage is independent senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders. There he is. How are you, Bernie? Hope you're doing well. Here's a tweet on your screen from Bernie Sanders where Bernie says, "Let's be clear, we will never get 10 votes from Senate Republicans to pass a $15 an hour minimum wage. The only way we can do it now is with 51 votes, is through the reconciliation process." Now, keep in mind that the reconciliation process is most likely going to be used, but without the support of the conservative Democrat. Again, there he is, Joe Manchin from West Virginia. What's up, Joe? Without his support, the Democrats will have to cut it out because that could potentially endanger the entire bill. The Democrats will have to essentially lose a battle in order to win the war. The war meaning the entire $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, which includes the stimulus checks that may or may not be targeted, which includes unemployment benefits extension, $400 a week all the way through September of this year, which includes funding for state and local governments, which includes money for vaccine distribution, which, by the way, is supported by the Republicans as well. So all of these major priorities and that are popular amongst a majority of our fellow Americans is something the Biden administration might try to get done sooner rather than later, so they can start with something that is extremely popular and then move on to something that is bipartisan, specifically the Build Back Better agenda, which will focus on infrastructure, which will focus on the modernization of our roads, our bridges, the internet, green energy, and all of those other things. That is what they're going to try and do later on in the year once we try and make our way out of this pandemic. Now, folks, you've all probably heard about the Byrd Rule. That's BYRD, the Byrd Rule, and it's super boring, but I'm going to give you like a 30-second primer of the Byrd Rule. The Byrd Rule limits what can be used in the reconciliation legislation. Now, this rule was adopted in 1985 and it was named for former Senator Robert Byrd, who's a Democrat from West Virginia, and it prevents extraneous provisions from being included in reconciliation so that only items that impact the federal budget can be included. In short, the Byrd Rule prevents the party that's trying to use reconciliation to do whatever they want, and it tries to place certain limitations in what they can do, which is what the Democrats are saying. But the truth is, the Democrats need the support of certain members of their own party, and if they don't get it, they're not going to admit that openly, so therefore they'll default back to the Byrd Rule. Now, folks, another Democrat who's not super happy with the whole situation, and you'll see her tweet on your screen, is Congresswoman Cori Bush from Missouri, and Congresswoman Cori Bush says we need to pass the $15 minimum wage immediately. Then we need to get right back to work and raise it to an actual livable wage, which means potentially going even above $15 an hour, because $15 an hour is not a livable wage in certain parts of the country. I understand the sentiment behind Congresswoman Bush, but it does not look like something like this is likely to happen in the near future. And Congresswoman Bush is not the only one fighting for the $15 an hour minimum wage. On your screen, you'll see a tweet from Congressman Ro Khanna from California, who says, what happens when we guarantee $15 an hour? 31% of black workers and 26% of Latino workers get raises. A majority of essential workers get better pay during a pandemic. Income inequality improves across the board. We're in the worst crisis of our lifetime. $15 an hour simply cannot wait. Now, folks, let me go back to the American Rescue Plan, the whopping $1.9 trillion stimulus package proposed by President Biden. President Biden has been a proponent of $15 now, but it doesn't happen at one shot. It happens gradually in a phased manner. So the American Rescue Plan would increase the minimum wage, which is currently at $7.25 an hour, up to $15 an hour by 2025 in gradual phases. Here's a comment directly from the President of the United States. There should be a national minimum wage of $15 an hour. No one working 40 hours a week should live below the poverty line. If you work for less than $15 an hour and work 40 hours a week, you're living in poverty. Important comments from the President of the United States. Folks, here's a tweet on your screen from Josh Edelson, who's a labor reporter for Bloomberg News and Business Week. And Josh points out that we're literally dying while politicians are playing football with our lives. We need a $15 an hour minimum wage in the COVID relief package. Now, folks, I want to be clear. The White House, specifically the White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, when she was asked to comment on this, nobody will commit to the inclusion of this. In fact, President Biden has already started essentially laying down the framework, the groundwork to say, hey, it's not going to happen right now. Let's see if we can do it later, because the Democrats are essentially moving on from this. So this may end up being a fleeting and an ambitious goal, a policy objective, but it looks like this is not going to happen despite the push from Bernie Sanders. There he is. What's up, Bernie? It looks like it's not going to happen despite the push from Congresswoman Cori Bush, from Congressman Ro Khanna, and other strong proponents of the $15 an hour minimum wage, including Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York. There she is. Hello, Congresswoman. So what is happening right now is that the $15 an hour minimum wage is unlikely to happen. And the reason I made this video is I want our viewers and subscribers to know that there are progressive elements within the Democratic Party that are pushing for this. I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comment section below. What are your thoughts about the $15 an hour minimum wage? This can impact the lives of millions of our fellow Americans, but it is going to lead to job losses for some Americans, because small businesses that cannot afford to pay $15 an hour, if they are forced to pay $15 an hour, will have to cut back on jobs elsewhere. President Biden can mandate this for federal jobs, but if it's done for businesses across the country, then it's going to create a ripple effect, which is going to have positive consequences for some and unintended consequences for others. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, whether you agree or disagree with these progressive elements, the progressive factions of the Democratic Party. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a like, please subscribe, please enable notifications. That would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much for watching. Again, please like, because it helps out the YouTube algorithm. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.